Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast, brought to you by Active Management, the world's leading fitness business coaches who in 2015 will help you #grow your business. This is the world's #1 podcast for fitness business owners and managers. We interview real owners and learn what has been working for them to make them so successful. Here's the host of the Fitness Business Podcast, Chantal.
Thanks, Harper. It's great to be back for another week of the Fitness Business Podcast. Before I tell you all about today's guest, I want to first remind our Australian and New Zealand listeners about the Active Management 2-day course coming up in Sydney, Australia in just a few weeks' time. It's called 7 Strategies to Reach and Retain Clients. Now, the course will cover understanding the 2015 consumer. It's got a complete sales process to produce you the highest yielding clients. We're going to talk about how to use social media to produce income and how to make your website a complete sales funnel, plus much, much more. You can register to attend the course. Simply jump onto the Active Management website, plus we'll have all the details in the show notes. Now, of course, if you're listening from anywhere else in the world and you're thinking, wow, that sounds cool, can we get that over here? Then make sure you email me at chantal@activemgmt.com.au and we can have a chat about it. Now, speaking of the 7 Strategies course, one of the key presenters is this man, Steve Jensen, and he's also our guest on today's show. Steve is the CEO and founder of the National Sales Academy and Impact Training Corporation. Steve is highly regarded globally in the fields of sales and sales management in the fitness industry, as well as in the art of communication. By being a master practitioner and training coach of NLP, he's ensured that the skills he develops not only help to increase sales, but also teach people life skills that have made a huge difference to improve people's everyday communication skills. With a wealth of experience like that, you are not going to be surprised to hear that today's podcast is all about the topic of sales. Welcome to the show, Steve. Can you start by telling us what is the #1 area that fitness businesses are consistently strong in, and then where are they consistently weak when it comes to sales?
Well, one of the areas that right around the world these days is the product that we have available. The clubs are now really have become quite beautiful, but also the equipment that we're using these days really inspires a lot of people when they come in. They go, wow, this is really, let's say, easy to use and quite inspiring when we have all the different types of classes when you come to the clubs. But also the small box clubs are all looking very, plush, and they all have a feel of, let's say, expertise about them, and all of the lovely equipment that we have. And the people that are actually training as well are very well trained these days. They go to all of the conventions these days, and gone are the days of just making it up. You go to URSA, you go to Cancer Pro, and obviously Filex in Australia. And people are learning a lot more now, which means that they are becoming a lot more educated. And this actually inspires a lot of people to buy because of some of the expertise with some of the people that understand the product and how to train. The thing that I think that's become weak is in the ability to create leads. Because the market has become, there's a lot of clubs out there now, and also a lot of studios and a lot of people doing personal training. One of the things that is becoming increasingly more difficult is to create enough leads to be able to present the great product that we have. And if we need to get a little bit smarter in actually getting in contact with the lead, and we have to understand that we've only really got one chance to actually get in contact with them to maybe inspire that person to come in. We've started to get a little bit lazy and going back to emails and also a text messaging, which means the person just has information and they can sometimes not show. The other thing that I find is a weakness, given that we have really beautiful product now, is when we get the opportunity to speak to somebody, or even if it's a walk-in, we need to qualify quickly what the person actually is there for. Now, they're not there to buy a membership. They're actually there to fix what they don't like about their fitness, whether it's a weight, they're maybe too slow. And we need to get a quick process to establish specifically what they want after we build enough rapport. Gone are the days of having a long time to create massive rapport. We need to be in a position where we create enough rapport so we can get the person to tell you the truth. And then we can then show them the wonderful product and teach them a little bit along the way. So by the time they're finished, they're ready to buy. And sometimes we don't do that, and which means that the tour becomes a show around. The tour has to be an inspirational solution where the person at the end of the tour should be ready to buy. It shouldn't be relying on the price presentation to get the sale. So the person who finishes the tour should say, right, I can see how all this will help me get back into the first grade next year, and they want to buy. So the price presentation just needs to be simple. So that's a little bit of a weakness that we have at the moment, because the feedback process that we had in the olden days just doesn't happen because there's so much to choose from.
Steve, you mentioned the need to build that rapport kind of quickly and instantly. Are there any kind of quick tips that you might be able to give us for that, creating that first impression?
Look, it's a good thing you asked about first impressions. First impression is something that no one practices and everyone is expected to do. There's not a lot of people that practice their first impression, and the meet and greet and getting the name and just using it once or twice is important. But more importantly, gone are the days of having to sit down and create massive rapport. We've just got to create enough rapport, and the way to do that is to find something in common as quickly as possible and get some laughter into the conversation. Laughter is commonality, and it's the holy grail. And if we can get some laughter and not make it so seriously and be just real, that's critical. We can't be, just be, fake sincerity, so to speak. So a bit of laughter and something in common quickly. It's easy to say, but it should be practiced.
Excellent. Great tip. So tell us, what has evolved in the sales process to meet the modern business? Okay.
In the last 2 to 3 years, it has evolved dramatically. I've been doing the sales and communications all around the world. And, in the olden days, we used to have an opportunity to do follow-up. And, in our 1 to 31 files, we could call someone, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ahead of time, and they would still join. Nowadays, there's so much they can do. They can do, mountain climbing. They can do their bike riding. They can go to a small club, big club. They go to yoga. You've got one chance. And this is something that we've got to get good at. You've got to be good at what you do. So they need to be trained well to make sure that they have the ability to inspire, not just to tell information. We have to find out the information quickly and then inspire that person. Now, the other thing that has changed quite dramatically is the amount of inquiries we get on the telephone. We're getting a substantial amount of web leads. Now, the web lead has to be contacted within the first 2 minutes. I've got statistics that say that if you don't contact them within 2 minutes, you're going to have to dial anywhere between 7 to 11 times to get hold of the human being, which has become almost impossible sometimes because the clubs are getting less and less staff. Yeah. So there's a process where they need to call, leave an exciting message. In the olden days, we used to not leave a message. You've got to leave an exciting message and tell them that you're going to call them and send them SMS, then can do that 2 or 3 times in that day. The lead actually dies in about 7 days. We'll still follow it up for 30 days, but it really does actually start to get very stale. The other thing that has really become quite evident is that the customer wants to be shown things that they don't know. We call them ink spots. I never knew that. So if someone wants to come and actually want to do weight loss, in the olden days we used to say, oh yes, we'll definitely get the weight off. We've got these great pieces of equipment. The consumer actually wants to be educated a little bit in the tour explanation demonstration. So what you need to do is to teach them something that they say, wow, I never knew that. And you'll say, my goodness, we actually do that. And maybe you have it's a USP, a unique selling point. Say we're the only club, we're the only personal training studio that does that, which means that they can't get anywhere else. So teach them something and make sure you are unique really establishes a reason to buy. And the last thing I would say, it's the price presentation. The price presentation needs to be sequenced. There needs to be a process where they'll go A, B, C, D, E. And it needs to be very clean and it needs to be quick but not rushed, because it needs to be a simple to understand and not lots of crossings out like we had in the olden days. It needs to be, we call it a clean presentation. And then ask the person, what were they leaning more towards, and then ask them to buy. 68% of sales are not asked for. People just expect the person just to throw over the cash. So it's got to do it quicker. We've got to make sure that we get hold of the person and then inspire them to come and see you. We're a belly-to-belly business.
Okay, Steve, so tell us, if we were to really, because you've already given us some great insights there, if we were to then break it up into, say, 3 specific areas that a fitness business absolutely needs to fire in if they want more sales, what would you say those 3 key areas would be?
Okay. If the clubs or the studios are able to make sure that they have the right social media, Facebook's a big deal these days, Instagram, making sure that their SEO is done correctly and we're getting the leads. They need to contact the lead quickly. That telephone call needs to be done within that 2 minutes. Gone are the days of waiting. You need to make sure that if you leave a message, it needs to be an exciting message, and tell them you're going to call them 2 or 3 times throughout the day. And if they don't want to hear from you, just let you know. And always send them an SMS, because the take-up of email is about 7%. People don't read emails anymore. You should always send them an SMS. That's number 1. Number 2 would be make sure that your phone work, when you do get in contact with the person, gets quality. Now, you need to have a prompt. Do not use a script. Make sure you use a prompt. And make sure that you practice the prompt and go off the page. In other words, have your ink spots. In other words, things that you'll teach them in your little cockpit. Make sure that you mention that you are unique. That means that you are able to then, have the person want to come and see you because they can't go to the competitor. Everyone says they know this, but they don't do it, and they certainly don't practice it. But the telephone work needs to be practiced. And I recommend that all telephone work should be recorded so you can review it. And the last thing would be make sure you do your very best to inspire the close. Do not try to close just on a deal. It should just be a little bit of a carrot at the end. You need to inspire the person to want to train with you or your team of experts. People want to do business with experts. If you've inspired them and they say, wow, I couldn't get this anywhere else, they'll want to part with their money, because the pain of actually giving you the money will far outweigh the pain of actually working with someone that's not as expert as you, or they don't have the uniqueness of your business. So the close needs to be succinct, and it needs to be, timed correctly. And that does take practice as well.
Steve, you mentioned in there about the point number 2, you called it the quality contact. And you mentioned about the need to have prompts, not necessarily a script. Can you delve into that a little bit more and give us a little bit more detail as what should we be doing when we're trying to forge that quality contact with a prospect?
Okay, when you actually get a person on the telephone, you should have a prompt. Now, in the olden days, we used to use scripts, but you need to go off the page. Now, the way to learn a prompt is to make sure that you chunk it a few times. In other words, take parts of it and do it 2 to 3 times so you know what's coming up. Now, the prompt is important because you can jump all over the page. You just need to fill out some specific criteria. Firstly, their name and how they found out about it, so they're not talking a lot about logical components. The second thing is you want to find specifically what they're wanting to achieve and why they want. And then you've got to tell them what you truly believe, and then throw in your uniqueness. And do it early. We call it going red early. In other words, go logical early to show you're an expert. If you don't show expertise on the telephone, it is a real challenge. And then in the olden days, we used to do telephone shops where we used to get someone to go through the scripting and to see if the scripting was right. I do it very differently now. At the end of it, you can get anyone to shop the club, and you could ask them a number of questions. Firstly, let's say a friend of yours who does the shop of the club, and say, ask them this question. Firstly, did you like the person? The answer was yes, that's great. Next thing is, would you show? Because they've been inspired, so to speak. Hopefully it's yes. And then you ask them the question, how much would you pay for the information that they gave you on the phone? In other words, was it just a whole lot of noise about, yes, we have great treadmills, we've got fantastic TVs, fantastic pool? Or did the person inspire you a little bit about their expertise? And they'll actually talk more about that when you pop in. And the very last thing is, was the person you spoke to at the club or studio perceived as an expert? And if the answer is yes, you probably have a high show rate. Confirmation calls, yeah, well, you still need to do those, but you also need to do a confirmation text. And it's not just, "Hi, I'm just confirming your appointment." It's like, "Hi, Chantel, it's Steve from the ABC Club. Looking forward to catching up with you and get you ready for your holiday in Barbados. I've got some really great things that I prepared for you on weight loss and also some fantastic ideas as far as nutrition because I've spoken to some of our experts in the personal training. And so I look forward to seeing you at 6 o'clock to get you ready for your holiday. By the way, I had your cup of coffee, latte with 2 ready for you. Bye for now." So it's a voicemail message, or you would say that to the person and getting feedback. So it's expert. I've done some preparation. I'm giving you something, and they want to come in and get the info that you've created. So that creates quality work on the telephone. And unfortunately, we expect the people in the fitness industry just to know that via osmosis. And it does take practice. I mean, a one-day workshop really isn't enough, and it needs to be practiced regularly and honed regularly and do role play, not role serious. Have some fun with the telephone play. So that's a little bit on phone. We could talk for hours about it, but that's just the Reader's Digest version.
That's a really good snapshot of quality contact, and it's a great way that you've defined it and you've explained it. And I can certainly see the importance of promoting your USP and talking about, as you say, positioning yourself as an expert. So thank you so much, Steve. Look, in a very short amount of time, you've given us a huge amount of information. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Fitness Business Podcast.
That's my pleasure.
A huge thank you to Steve for being a guest on the Fitness Business Podcast. You can find out more information about Steve at impact-training.net. And we'll also have all of his contact details in today's show notes. And don't forget, Steve is one of the key presenters at the Active Management course, 7 Strategies to Reach and Retain Clients, that's coming up in Sydney in under 3 weeks' time. Registration details are all in today's show notes.
The Fitness Business Podcast is very appreciative of our podcast partners. Here's a quick word from one of our partners.
As you know, one of our goals at the Fitness Business Podcast is to help you grow your business. So I love it when I can tell you about solutions to help you do just that. One of our podcast sponsors is Tribe Team Training, and I'll tell you exactly why you need to remember that name. Let me start by asking you 3 questions. Is your club struggling to grow your membership numbers because of more and more competition? Is your club under pressure to reduce membership fees for your existing members? Do you lose members who go to niche small group programs like CrossFit, boot camps, and boxing, where they often pay double what they're paying with you? Well, the good news is that some clubs have found a new way to grow their club's revenue and profit without having to sell extra memberships. They're doing this by implementing a highly profitable small group training system called Tribe Team Training. In fact, one regional club with only 600 members takes over $200,000 per year on top of their membership fees from their Tribe Team Training program. So, what's it all about? Well, Tribe Team Training is a complete small group training business system that helps clubs make more money without having to sell more memberships. Whether you're currently running small group training or not, it is worth taking the time to see what Tribe Team Training can add to your business. In fact, some clubs have grown to over 30, 40, and 50 sessions per week, with members paying $10 to $15 extra per session. Most clubs have underutilized space or time that can be generating extra cash for the club, extra work for the trainers, and the Group X instructors, plus delivering outstanding results for members. The Tribe programs work on large exercise floors and in small functional training spaces with as little as 60 square meters. You may already have functional training equipment, but without the consistent delivery of fresh programs, it's difficult to take maximum advantage of it. Now, regardless of the success of your current programs, Tribe is offering club owners a free online briefing so you can see for yourself the difference between team training and small group training, the difference it can make to your members, the opportunities it gives to your trainers and instructors, and the extra income it can add to your club. So, to register for your free briefing, all you need to do is head over to tribeteamtraining.com or tribeteamtraining.com.au. Let me tell you those addresses again. It's tribeteamtraining.com or tribeteamtraining.com.au. And of course, a copy of both of those website links will be in today's show notes.
It's time for the Fitness Business Podcast Wrap.
As always, at the end of each show, I'd like to leave you with my top takeaways from this week's guest. Now, Steve Jensen told us to ensure that you always qualify what a prospect wants and make sure you do it quickly. He reminded us to create rapport by finding something in common with your prospect, keeping it casual, and where relevant, include a little laughter in your conversation. He told us that website leads need to be contacted within 2 minutes in order to get hold of the prospect after they've made the online inquiry. And when you do get in contact with that prospect, make sure the conversation you have with them is a quality one. On next week's show, JT from Active Management is back. He's stepping off the plane from Russia and the UK, and I have no doubt he'll have many, many stories to share. Our resident podcast expert, Sharon, is also back to chat to us about how to kickstart your very own podcast. And we'll hear from another one of our great sponsors, Visual Fitness Planner. Before I say goodbye for today, don't forget to jump on and rate the Fitness Business Podcast on iTunes. All you need to do is go to iTunes, search for the Fitness Business Podcast, and under the title is Rating and Reviews. Just click there and give us a star rating and write a comment. As always, if you've got any suggestions, comments, or feedback about the show, please email me at chantal@activemgmt.com.au. Or if you've got a question about owning or managing a fitness business, I'm going to forward that one on to JT and we might just feature it in an upcoming show. Plus, don't forget you can find all of our previous episodes and show notes located on our brand new website, fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Until next week, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.
You have been listening to the world's #1 podcast called the Fitness Business Podcast, brought to you by Active Management. We are dedicated to helping your fitness business #grow in 2015. Check out www.activemgmt.com.au for resources, tools, and more to help you. And by far, the best value for you is to become a member. So join today at www.activemgmt.com.au.